If you are currently leveling up your Django skills with this tutorial, just to let you know, this tutorial is part of a free YouTube playlist, Django Database Structural Testing, where we learn how to set up and utilize PyTest for database structural testing within Django projects. If you like this tutorial and playlist, then also check out our Django Database ORM Mastery course on Udemy. The link to the course and playlist should be found in the video description. Having now tested that the relationship fields have been configured correctly within our model, let's move now to verifying nullable or not nullable fields. So here we're going to build a test to ensure that our fields are correctly defined as nullable or not nullable fields. Deciding whether a field should be nullable or not is a fundamental aspect of database schema design. It directly impacts how the database enforces rules, maintains data integrity, and performs operations. So properly setting the nullable attributes based on the context and requirements of each field ensures a robust, reliable, and efficient database system. If you take a look at our database design, our category model, you can see that we have identified whether each field should be nullable or not. So NN stands for not null, and NL, in this case, the key, if you take a look at the key, there is a key over here. NL stands for null, so that field can be null. So it clearly identifies which fields should not be null, and you can see that pretty much all the fields except for the foreign key field should be set to not null. So that's just indicating the fact that there should be data inserted in each of these fields when we add a new record into the database, with the exception of the foreign key, which can be a null field. So here in Django, it isn't necessarily obvious whether a field type, in this case character field, is null or not null. But most of the Django field types have a setting, a default setting, and sometimes it's just a case of delving back into the Django documentation, checking out the field type, and ensuring or identifying the default value and changing it as needed. So here you can see that we haven't actually defined whether this field is null or not null. We can explicitly define that. So we can just use the null parameter here and set this to null equals false. So we can do that explicitly on all of the fields, but we don't have to here in Django because we can just rely on the default settings. Now, if you are someone who likes to explicitly define and have everything in front of you, then you can definitely explicitly define whether a field should be null or not. But like I said, just check out the documentation if you're not too sure with particular fields. So let's go ahead now and build our test. Now what we can do, because we have already created a little bit further up here, the PyTest mark parameterize for our fields, we could potentially reutilize this and change it to what we need for this next test. So here we have all the fields, the model, if we are going to need that, and then we need the expected, we'll call this expected nullable or null type. So I'm just going to call this expected nullable. No L there. Okay, so here I just need to now define whether it should be null or not. So false. So the ID shouldn't be nullable. There should always be data inserted when we insert a new row into the table. Same with the name. There should always be a name inserted. Slug definitely is active. That's always going to include a true or false. So that's always going to be populated, and we have level. So the level. So we need to decide whether that needs to be populated or not. So let's set it so that it is required. So every field here should be not null. Okay, so now we can go ahead and create our test function for this. So test, like before, model, structure, We call this nullable constraints. And then we just need to pass in the data, our test data, model field name expected nullable. And now we just need to run our tests. So the first thing we need to do is we need to get the field. So we need to get the field from the model. So field equals model dot underscore. We're doing this using the underscore meta. This is features, as I explained before, from Django ORM. So this allows us to delve into the model data. It can be useful in our application in some instances where we want to perform some customized features on our models. Right, so that's going to grab the field. So now we can go ahead and check if the nullable constraint matches the expected value. So let's do that next. Right, so we're going to assert, and we want to grab the field and the null property, and then we want to match that against the expected nullable type. That's obviously the data we're passing in. So we're checking the field, we're grabbing the field. So we're obviously going to iterate over all of these fields one by one. And each time we're going to grab the field, and then we're going to look at the field null property of that field, and then we're going to match it against what we the expected result. And in each case here in our category table, each field should be set to false. Now remember, we aren't testing for the relationship fields. We've done that independently within an individual test previously. So if you're wondering why we haven't included the relationship field, that is why. Now I'm just trying to show you different approaches here. So in actual fact, if you would prefer to remove the test we created previously where we're testing the relationship field or attributes related to the relationship fields in our table in the other tests that we're building, then by all means do that, whatever fits your pattern of work. So I'm just going to include the string should the test fail. Completely up to you. Remember, that is optional. And there we go. There we have our test. So let's try this out. So it looks like our test has now passed.